into a room full of people. Everyone is talking, laughing, sharing ideas. Your heart beats fast. You feel small, invisible, unsure. But deep inside, you know you don't have to hide. You can shine, you can speak, and the world will notice. Confidence isn't magic. It's something you can learn, something you can own. Today it begins. Today you become unforgettable. The door closes behind you with a soft click, but it sounds like a gunshot in your chest. The room is alive. Voices overlap. Laughter bursts like fireworks. Glasses clink. Shoes scrape against polished floors. 100 tiny conversations weave together into one humming current of confidence and connection, and you stand just inside the doorway, unnoticed, unmoving, as if you have stepped into a world where everyone else received a script except you. Your heartbeat begins to pound in your ears. You scan the room. People lean toward one another with ease. They gesture freely, shoulders relaxed, eyes bright. Their presence fills the air. You try to imitate it, straighten your back, lift your chin, but your body feels stiff, mechanical, like you're playing a role you haven't rehearsed. You tell yourself, just walk forward, smile, say something, but your feet hesitate. This is not the first time. It never is. The invisible room has followed you your entire life. You remember being younger, standing at the edge of playground circles, listening to other kids laugh. You remember rehearsing sentences in your head before speaking, only to swallow them when the moment passed. You remember the teacher asking a question you knew the answer to, your hand twitching but never rising. Back then, you thought confidence was something you were born without, like height or eye color, something permanent. You learned to observe instead of participate, to watch instead of lead, to listen instead of speak, and people rarely noticed. That became your identity, the quiet one, the background presence, the safe choice. Now, years later, nothing has changed. Only the rooms are bigger. The stakes are higher. You move deeper into the crowd, pretending to check your phone so your hands have something to do. The blue glow reflects in your eyes like a shield. Around you, voices rise and fall in waves. A fragment drifts toward you. She's incredible in meetings. He just owns the room. You feel the words like a quiet punch. Owns the room. You don't even feel like you belong in it. A group nearby erupts into laughter. Someone makes a bold point. Heads nod. Energy shifts toward the speaker like gravity bending space. You watch the subtle mechanics, the way he stands tall, shoulders open, the way he holds eye contact without flinching, the slight pause before he speaks, as if the silence belongs to him. You try to imagine yourself doing that. The image feels foreign, unreal. Your inner voice whispers, they're different. They have something you don't. And for years you have believed that voice. The belief settled quietly inside you, layer by layer. Each awkward interaction added another brick. Each moment of hesitation reinforced the story. You are not charismatic. You are not magnetic. You are not the kind of person people gravitate toward. So you stayed small. It felt safer. But tonight, something shifts. You notice the exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but emotional. The tiredness of holding yourself back. The fatigue of shrinking your thoughts, the constant calculation of how you might be judged. It weighs on you more than the fear itself. Across the room, someone catches your eye briefly, a flicker of connection. You look away instantly, heat rising to your face. Why did you do that? Why does eye contact feel like stepping off a cliff? You take a slow breath. Olivia Fox Cabane once wrote that charisma is not a gift. It is a skill, a behavior, a choice of presence, power, and warmth. The idea lingers in your mind like forbidden hope. If it is a skill, then it can be learned. If it can be learned, then maybe you are not broken. You shift your posture slightly, roll your shoulders back, let your arms relax instead of crossing defensively. It feels unnatural, almost theatrical, but you hold it. You observe something subtle. When you straighten, your breathing deepens. When your breathing deepens, your mind steadies. Is confidence physical before it is emotional? You test it. You walk toward a smaller group, 3 people discussing something animatedly. Your pulse accelerates with every step. Turn back, the voice urges. You'll interrupt. You'll say something stupid. But another voice, quieter, unfamiliar, whispers, "Stay." You reach the edge of the circle. Someone glances at you briefly. No one tells you to leave. No one frowns. The world does not collapse. You listen first. The conversation is about a recent project. You actually have insight. You know something useful. Your mind begins its old ritual, rehearsing, editing, doubting. The pause opens. You feel it, a space in the air, and before fear can clamp down fully, you speak. It is not loud, not dramatic, just a sentence, calm, direct. For half a second, silence hangs like a fragile thread. Then one of them nods. "That's actually a good point." Another adds, "Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way." The world does not explode. You are now rejected. You are not dismissed. Your heart is racing, but not from humiliation, from something else, possibility. The conversation continues and you contribute again. Small, steady, present. You are still nervous. Your hands still tremble slightly, but something undeniable has shifted. You are not invisible. You are simply absent. There is a difference. You step back later, letting the group disperse. The noise of the room feels different now, less threatening, more neutral. You realize something profound. People did not ignore you because you lacked value. They simply responded to what you projected: hesitation, withdrawal, guardedness. If presence is projected, it can be strengthened. If warmth can be practiced, connection can be built. If power is expressed through body and voice, then influence is trainable. The myth of natural charisma begins to crack. But just as hope rises, another thought creeps in. What if that was luck? What if next time you fail, you know this voice? It has protected your comfort for years. It will not surrender easily. The room begins to empty slowly. People gather coats. Goodbyes echo softly. You walk toward the exit, the cool night air waiting beyond the doors. As you step outside, the city hums beneath dim streetlights. Your reflection appears faintly in the glass behind you. For a moment, you barely recognize the person staring back. There is something new in your eyes. Not confidence yet, but hunger. You understand now that invisibility was never your destiny. It was your default setting, and defaults can be rewritten. But growth demands discomfort. Learning presence means confronting every buried insecurity. Learning warmth means risking rejection. Learning power means exposing yourself to judgment. The path forward will not be gentle. As you walk into the night, the memory of your small victory flickers beside a deeper realization. If charisma can be learned, then everything you believed about yourself might be wrong. And if that belief collapses, who are you really? The question follows you home like a shadow, because the next room you enter will not be smaller. It will be bigger, louder, higher stakes, and this time you won't have the option of hiding. The most dangerous place in the world is not a battlefield. It is your own mind when you are not inside it. You don't notice it at first. The way your thoughts drift while someone is speaking. The way your eyes flicker past faces instead of truly seeing them. The way your body stands in a room while your awareness hides somewhere safer, replaying yesterday's embarrassment or rehearsing tomorrow's fear. That is how invisibility is born. Not because you are small, but because you are absent. The morning after your small breakthrough, you wake before the alarm. Pale light seeps through your window, casting long shadows across the ceiling. For a moment, you lie still, heart steady, replaying the memory of last night, the sentence you spoke, the nod of agreement, the subtle shift in how you were received. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't heroic, but it was real. And yet, doubt creeps in like fog. What if it was accidental? What if next time you freeze? You sit up slowly. The room is quiet except for the faint hum of traffic below. Your reflection in the mirror looks ordinary, same eyes, same posture, same guarded expression. Nothing external has changed. So why does something feel different? You remember a concept you once read in the charisma myth. Presence is the foundation of charisma, not talent, not beauty, not intelligence, presence. The idea unsettles you because presence is not something you can fake for long. It demands that you actually be here, fully, and that is far more terrifying than speaking up. You move through your morning mechanically, at first brushing your teeth while scrolling through your phone, eating breakfast while mentally rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet. Your body is in the kitchen, but your mind is sprinting elsewhere. Then you catch it. You pause. You put the phone down. You look at the steam rising from your coffee. You notice the warmth of the mug in your hands, the faint bitterness in the air, the sound of your own breathing. For a split second, everything sharpens. This is presence. It feels small, almost insignificant, but it feels powerful. Later, at work, you test it. The office is buzzing, keyboards clicking, printers whirring, muted conversations humming like static in the background. Normally, you would move through the space, half distracted, avoiding eye contact, shrinking your energy to avoid attention. Today, you slow down. You walk with deliberate steps, shoulders back, not rigid, but grounded. You let your gaze rest on people instead of darting away. You listen when someone speaks, not planning your response, but absorbing their words fully. It feels exposed. Your mind screams, they're looking at you. You look awkward. You're trying too hard, but you resist the urge to retreat into mental noise. You stay. During a team meeting, you sit upright, feet planted firmly on the floor. Your heart begins its familiar rhythm of anxiety as discussions start flowing. Normally, this is where your thoughts scatter, half listening, half panicking. But today you anchor yourself. You focus on the speaker's voice, the subtle shifts in tone, the pauses between sentences, the flicker of uncertainty in their eyes, and something surprising happens. You notice details others miss. You see when someone wants to speak but hesitates. You feel when the energy in the room dips. You sense tension before it surfaces. Presence is not passive. It is powerful awareness. The conversation shifts toward a challenge your team is facing. Silence stretches across the table like a thin wire pulled tight. You feel it, the opening, not just a gap to speak, but a gap to influence. Your mind tries to flood you with noise. Don't mess this up. Say it perfectly. Don't look stupid. Instead of fighting the thoughts, you return to your breath. Inhale, exhale. You speak not louder than usual, but steadier, slower. You don't rush. You don't fill silence with nervous words. You let your senses land. The room feels different. People are listening, not because you demanded attention, but because you are fully there. You realize something subtle but transformative when you are present. Others feel it. Olivia Fox-Cabane describes presence as making people feel like they are the only person in the room. You test this later in a one-on-one conversation. A colleague vents about a difficult project. Normally, you would nod politely while your mind drifts. Today, you lock in. You listen without interrupting. You hold eye contact, not aggressively, but warmly. You let pauses exist without scrambling to fill them. At one point, they stop mid-sentence and say quietly, "Thanks for really listening." The words hit you harder than applause ever could. Because this is different from being impressive. This is being impactful, but presence has a cost. As the day wears on, you feel mentally drained. Staying fully aware requires effort. It forces you to confront uncomfortable emotions instead of escaping into distraction. It makes you aware of your own insecurity instead of numbing it. By evening, you're exhausted not from talking, but from staying conscious. You walk home through dimly lit streets, the city alive around you. Neon lights flicker, car engines roar, strangers brush past without noticing you. But you notice them. You see the tension in a man's shoulders as he argues on the phone, the quiet fatigue in a woman's eyes as she waits for the bus. the nervous excitement and a couple holding hands outside a restaurant. The world feels more vivid and more intense. Presence removes the filter that once protected you. You are no longer hiding inside your thoughts. You are exposed to reality raw and immediate. And with that exposure comes vulnerability. Back in your apartment, you sit in silence. No music, no scrolling, no distractions, just you. Your mind tries to escape. It throws memories at you, past embarrassments, awkward silences, failed attempts. But you stay. You observe the thoughts without drowning in them. You realize something crucial. Confidence is not about dominating a room. It begins with dominating your own attention. If you cannot command your awareness, you cannot command influence. You lie back, staring at the ceiling. A quiet fear creeps in, because if presence makes you powerful, it also makes you visible, and visibility means exposure. Exposure means judgment, and judgment has always been your deepest fear. You understand now that this journey will not simply be about posture and eye contact. It will force you to confront the voice that has whispered for years that you are not enough. Presence is only the first layer. Beneath it lies something darker, self-doubt. And if you are going to truly become the most confident person in the room, you will have to face that voice head on. The most powerful voice in your life is not your boss's, not your parents', not the loudest person in the room. It is the one that speaks when no one else is there, and it has been shaping your destiny in the dark. You hear it before you even open your eyes in the morning. A quiet murmur beneath consciousness, a whisper that slides into your thoughts before you can defend yourself. You didn't do enough yesterday. You sounded stupid in that meeting. Don't try too hard today. You'll embarrass yourself. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It has been rehearsing for years. Your room is dim, gray light pressing softly against the curtains. The world outside is waking distant traffic, a dog barking, someone dragging a trash bin across pavement. Ordinary sounds, ordinary life. But inside your mind, a courtroom is already in session. The prosecutor clears his throat. Let's review the evidence. You see flashes, childhood moments you didn't think mattered. A classroom where your hand was half raised, then slowly lowered because someone else answered first. A group of teenagers laughing, and you assuming they were laughing at you. A presentation where your voice trembled and you noticed the subtle glance someone gave their phone. See? The voice says quietly, this is who you are. You sit up in bed, breathing slowly, but the tension coils in your chest anyway. The inner dialogue doesn't wait for your permission. It narrates your life like a harsh documentary voiceover. When you brush your teeth, it critiques your reflection. When you choose your clothes, it questions your taste. When you step outside, it predicts failure before you even greet the day. You used to believe that voice was you, but something has shifted since you began practicing presence. Now you're starting to notice it, to observe it, to separate from it just slightly. You walk through the city, early sunlight bouncing off glass buildings, wind tugging lightly at your jacket. People move around you with purpose. Some look confident, some look tired, some look indifferent. Your mind fills in stories automatically. They're more successful than you. They're more attractive. They have it figured out. The voice lows comparison. It feeds on it. Inside the office elevator, surrounded by silent coworkers, your reflection stares back at you from mirrored walls. The voice leans closer. You don't belong here. They'll figure it out eventually. Imposter, fraud, pretender. The words are not new. They followed you for years, changing tone but never message. During the morning briefing, you feel the familiar tightness in your throat. Someone across the table speaks confidently, gestures fluidly, commands attention. The voice in your head narrates mercilessly. Look at them. That's what confidence looks like, not whatever you're trying to do. You almost shrink again, almost disappear into your chair. But then something different happens. Instead of obeying the voice, you question it. A simple thought interrupts the monologue. Is this true? The question feels rebellious, dangerous. The voice falters for a fraction of a second. Then it doubles down. Of course it's true. Look at your past. But now you see the pattern. The voice is not reporting facts. It is recycling memories selectively. It never replays the times you succeeded. It never magnifies the moments you were brave. It edits your history like a biased filmmaker, cutting out evidence that contradicts its narrative. You lean back slightly, grounding your feet against the floor. You listen to the meeting, but you also listen to the voice. It's afraid. That realization lands like a quiet earthquake. The voice that sounds so critical, so harsh it is trying to protect you. If it convinces you not to speak, you won't risk embarrassment. If it convinces you you're not capable, you won't risk failure. If it convinces you to stay small, you won't risk rejection. Its mission is safety. But safety has become a prison. Later, alone at your desk, you remember a line from the charisma myth. Confidence is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. And fear is amplified by the stories we tell ourselves. Stories. That's what the inner dialogue is. A storyteller. The question is, who gave it the pen? You think back to childhood again. The first time a teacher corrected you sharply. The first time a parent compared you to someone better. The first time you laughed along with others while secretly wondering if you were the joke. Small moments, tiny cuts. Over time, they formed a script. You are not enough, and you've been reading from that script ever since. The afternoon brings another opportunity. A spontaneous discussion erupts about a new project. Energy crackles across the room. You feel the opening again, that thin wire of silence waiting to be claimed. The voice rises instantly. Don't. You'll ruin it. Stay quiet. Your heart pounds. Your palms grow warm. For a split second, you consider obeying. It would be easier, comfortable, familiar, but then you realize something profound. The voice has predicted disaster many times before, and most of the time it was wrong. You inhale slowly. You let the voice speak, but you don't let it command. You add your perspective, not perfectly, not flawlessly, but honestly. There's a pause. No one laughs. No one rolls their eyes. In fact, someone nods. Another builds on your idea. The voice grows quieter, not silenced, but shaken. You feel something shift internally. Not a dramatic explosion of confidence, more like a crack in a long-standing wall. Light seeping through. By evening, exhaustion returns. Not physical, but emotional. Challenging your inner dialogue feels like wrestling a shadow. It doesn't disappear. It changes shape. You sit by your window at night, city lights blinking like distant stars. You let the thoughts come. This time, instead of arguing, you observe. The voice whispers again. You just got lucky today. You almost smile. Maybe. You think back silently. Or maybe you're not always right. That quiet defiance feels revolutionary, because if the voice is not always right, then neither is the fear. And if the fear is not truth, then you have been living inside a story that can be rewritten. But rewriting a story is dangerous. It means stepping outside the identity you've carried for years. It means letting go of the comfort of self-doubt. It means risking a bigger stage. As you close your eyes, another realization creeps in darker than the rest. If the inner critic has been protecting you all this time, what happens when you no longer need its protection? Will it fade quietly, or will it fight back? Tomorrow you will find out. What if confidence was not about what you say, but about what you radiate before you ever open your mouth? What if the room feels you before it hears you? You don't notice energy at first. You only notice its absence. The dull mornings, the flat conversations, the meetings where words are spoken but nothing moves. You used to think charisma was about perfect sentences or clever humor, but now, after confronting your inner dialogue, you begin to sense something deeper, something invisible yet undeniable. Energy is the current beneath everything. You wake before sunrise. The sky outside your window is washed in deep blue, the world quiet, almost holding its breath. For a moment, you lie still and listen to your own. Inhale, exhale, slow, controlled, present. But beneath the calm, there's a heaviness. Your body feels slightly tired, your mind slightly cluttered, and you remember something from the charisma myth. Your mental and emotional state directly shapes how others perceive you, not your resume, not your achievements, your state. Energy is not volume, it is not hyperactivity, it is aliveness. You sit up and let your feet touch the cold floor. The chill jolts you awake. You stretch slowly, feeling stiffness in your shoulders. For years, you carried tension like armor, shoulders slightly hunched, jaw tight, breath shallow. Armor drains energy. You step outside into the morning air. The city is beginning to stir, vendors setting up stalls, buses groaning to life, early commuters walking briskly with coffee in hand. The air smells faintly of dust and gasoline and possibility. As you walk, you notice two kinds of people. Some move like shadows, heads down, steps mechanical, expressions closed. Others move differently. Even without speaking, they seem charged, their posture upright but relaxed, their movements intentional, their eyes alert. You feel the difference immediately. Energy is contagious. At work, you test this theory unconsciously. You enter the building not rushing, not dragging, just grounded. You slow your breath before stepping into the office. You let your shoulders drop. You lift your chin slightly, not forced confidence, but intentional vitality. When you greet the receptionist, you add a subtle warmth to your tone. You hold eye contact half a second longer than usual. Not intense, just present. She smiles more brightly than before. It's small, but you feel it. Throughout the morning, you experiment. Instead of letting fatigue dictate your posture, you sit upright. Instead of speaking quickly to get it over with, you slow your rhythm. Instead of reacting to tension with silence, you respond with calm steadiness, and something begins to shift. People lean in slightly when you talk. Conversations feel lighter. Even your own thoughts seem clearer. You realize energy is not something you wait to feel. It is something you choose to cultivate. Olivia Fox Cavane describes three components of charisma: presence, power, and warmth. Energy fuels all three. Without energy, presence feels dull. Without energy, power feels weak. Without energy, warmth feels forced. But when your energy is aligned, calm, yet alive, people feel safe and inspired at the same time. Midday brings a challenge, a difficult discussion about a failing project. The room is tense. Voices are clipped. Someone blames someone else. You feel the familiar pull of anxiety creeping back. Your inner dialogue whispers, "This is not your place. Stay quiet," but you remember something else. Emotional contagion works both ways. If you absorb the room's stress, you amplify it. If you stabilize your energy, you shift it. You inhale slowly. You ground your feet. You imagine your breath extending beyond your body, filling the space around you. It sounds abstract, but it works. When you speak, your tone is steady, not defensive, not aggressive. You acknowledge the problem, but you don't add fuel to the fire. Gradually, the atmosphere softens. Someone nods. Someone else relaxes their shoulders. The conversation becomes constructive instead of combative. You didn't dominate. You directed. Energy is leadership without shouting. Later, during a break, a colleague approaches you. "You seem different lately," they say casually. "More, I don't know. Solid." The word stays with you. Solid. Not flashy. Not loud. Solid. Not loud. That's the kind of energy that draws people, not chaotic bursts, but grounded intensity. You think back to your past self, the version of you who entered rooms already defeated, who slouched slightly to avoid attention, who dimmed enthusiasm to avoid judgment. That version wasn't incapable. It was energetically withdrawn. As the day continues, you notice something else. Energy is not only physical, it is emotional. The thoughts you rehearse shape the vibration you carry. When your mind loops self-doubt, Your body mirrors it. When your thoughts shift toward possibility, your posture follows. In the evening, you push yourself further. You attend a small networking event, something you would have avoided months ago. The room is filled with unfamiliar faces, low music humming in the background, glasses clinking softly. Your heart beats faster. The inner critic begins warming up again. You don't belong here. These people are more accomplished. Don't embarrass yourself. But you don't try to crush the fear. You convert it. Energy is neutral until directed. Instead of labeling the sensation as anxiety, you reframe it as activation. Your body is preparing you to engage. You straighten your spine, relax your jaw, slow your breath, and then you move. You approach someone standing alone near the edge of the room. You greet them warmly. You listen attentively. You let your curiosity show. Something unexpected happens. The conversation flows. They laugh. You laugh. The interaction feels alive, not because you delivered perfect lines, but because you were fully charged, engaged, open, vibrant. You move through the room gradually, not trying to impress everyone, just connecting intentionally. By the end of the night, you feel something unfamiliar yet undeniable. Momentum. Energy builds upon itself. The more you invest consciously, the more it returns multiplied. Walking home under street lights, you feel the city differently. Your steps are lighter, your mind clearer. The world doesn't seem intimidating, it seems interactive. You realize something powerful. Confidence is magnetic, not because it demands attention, but because it radiates life, and life draws life. But as you unlock your apartment door and step into the quiet darkness, another thought creeps in. Energy must be sustained. You cannot fake vitality forever. You cannot radiate strength if internally you are depleted, which means this journey is about more than performance. It's about alignment, because if your outer energy grows stronger while your inner foundation remains unstable, the spark could become a wildfire. And tomorrow, you will learn that true charisma is not only about the energy you project, but about the warmth that determines whether people stay. Power without warmth is intimidation. Warmth without power is invisibility. But warmth with presence and energy, that is magic. You used to think being respected meant being impressive. You thought admiration came from sharp ideas, confident posture, strong eye contact. And yes, those things shifted the way people looked at you. You felt it. The subtle pauses when you spoke, the attention, the acknowledgement. But something was still missing. You could command a room for a moment. You could influence a conversation. Yet you weren't sure people felt safe around you. And safety, you begin to understand, is the true gateway to connection. The realization doesn't come in a grand moment. It arrives quietly on a rainy afternoon. The sky hangs low and gray outside your office windows. Raindrops streak against the glass like blurred memories. The atmosphere inside feels heavy, deadlines looming. Conversation shorter than usual. Tension hovering just beneath professionalism. You're speaking with a colleague about a delayed project. You present your thoughts calmly, clearly. You feel grounded, solid, energetic. But their eyes remain guarded, their posture stiff. You see it suddenly. They respect you, but they don't feel you. Warmth is not about smiling constantly. It is not about being agreeable. It is about signaling that you are not a threat, that you are on their side, that your strength will not crush them. You think back to childhood again, to the moments when you felt small, not because someone was loud, but because they were cold. Teachers who corrected without kindness, adults who valued performance over understanding. Power without warmth leaves scars. You promised yourself long ago without realizing it that you would never be that kind of presence. And yet, in your quest to build confidence, you may have leaned too heavily into control. That evening, you sit alone in your apartment, rain tapping rhythmically against the window. The room is dim except for a single lamp casting a soft amber glow. You replay the day in your mind. A phrase echoes from something you once read. Warmth is the intention to be benevolent. Benevolent, not superior, not dominant, benevolent. The next morning, you decide to experiment not with your posture, not with your voice, but with your intention. Before entering the office, you pause. You ask yourself one simple question: how can I make people feel safe today? The shift is subtle but profound. When you greet the security guard, you don't just nod. You ask how his morning has been, and when he answers, you truly listen. His shoulders relax slightly. In the elevator, you notice a woman juggling folders, her expression strained. You hold the door without hesitation. She thanks you with visible relief. Small moments, but warmth lives in small moments. During a meeting, instead of jumping straight into analysis, you acknowledge the stress everyone is feeling. I know this deadline has been intense, you say evenly. I appreciate the work everyone's putting in. You see the difference immediately. Eyes soften. Someone exhales audibly. Warmth disarms defensiveness. Later, a junior coworker approaches you hesitantly with a question. You remember how it felt to stand where they stand, now uncertain, afraid of sounding foolish. Your inner critic tries to interfere. Don't waste time. Be efficient, but you override it. You give them your full attention. You lower your tone slightly. You nod as they speak. You respond not just with information, but with encouragement. That's a good question, you say genuinely. I'm glad you brought it up. Their entire posture changes. In that moment, you understand something powerful. Warmth creates permission. Permission for others to speak, to risk, to exist without fear of humiliation. And strangely, it doesn't diminish your confidence, it strengthens it, because true power does not need to intimidate. As days pass, you begin to balance presence, energy, and warmth like three pillars holding up a new identity. You notice how people linger longer in conversations with you, how they open up unexpectedly, how laughter comes easier. But warmth requires vulnerability. One afternoon, you make a small mistake during a presentation, a statistic slightly off, a detail misremembered. The old you would have deflected or minimized it quickly, hiding the flaw. Instead, you smile lightly and correct yourself openly. That's on me, you admit. Let me fix that. There's a flicker in the room, not judgment but trust. Imperfection, when owned, humanizes you, and warmth is deeply human. But not everyone responds positively. One colleague begins testing you subtly, interrupting more often, challenging your ideas sharply. Perhaps your growing presence unsettles them. Perhaps your warmth reads as softness to them. The tension builds slowly, a silent battle of micro-expressions and clipped tones. You feel the pressure, the temptation to harden, to respond with cold authority. But you remember, warmth is not weakness. It is controlled strength. During a particularly tense exchange, instead of matching their sharpness, you hold steady. You listen fully. You acknowledge their concern. Then you respond firmly but respectfully. No aggression, no retreat, just grounded clarity. The room shifts again. The interruption stops. The challenge dissolves. Warmth did not surrender power. It refined it. That night, walking home beneath streetlights shimmering on wet pavement, you feel something deeper than confidence. You feel connected, not because everyone admires you, but because people feel seen around you. And yet, as the days grow smoother, a new realization unsettles you. Warmth opens doors. It allows people closer. Closer means they see more of you. And the closer they get, the more they might see the parts you're still unsure about. The lingering insecurities, the unfinished edges. Warmth demands authenticity, and authenticity demands courage. As you stand by your window again, city lights blinking in the darkness, a quiet understanding settles in your chest. You are no longer invisible. You are no longer absent. You are no longer energetically dim. You are becoming magnetic. But magnetism attracts everything: admiration, expectation, jealousy, need. And not everyone who is drawn to your light will come with good intentions. Some will test it. Some will try to use it. Some will try to extinguish it. The next lesson will not be about projecting warmth. It will be about protecting your boundaries without losing your heart. And that battle will be far more dangerous. What if the real reason people ignore you isn't what you say, but how you sound when you say it. Close your eyes for a moment and remember the voices that have moved you. The teacher whose calm tone made chaos disappear. The leader whose slow, deliberate words made you believe change was possible. The stranger whose laughter filled a room and made everyone lean closer. You rarely remember their exact sentences, but you remember how their voice made you feel safe, inspired, awake. Now think about your own. For years, your voice has been an afterthought, something automatic, something functional. You spoke to communicate information, not emotion. When nervous, it sped up. When unsure, it softened. When challenged, it tightened. Your voice betrayed every internal storm you tried to hide. And you knew it. You remember the first time someone said, "Why are you talking so fast?" It wasn't cruel. It was casual. But it lingered. Another time, someone asked you to repeat yourself because you mumbled. Each comment carved a quiet insecurity. Your voice became something to manage, not something to own. But now, standing at this stage of your transformation, presence grounded, energy alive, warmth awakened, you realize something crucial. Your voice is not just sound, it is power shaped into vibration, and power can be trained. The realization hits you one morning before a presentation. The room is still empty, chairs neatly aligned, a projector humming faintly, sunlight streaming through tall windows, illuminating dust particles floating in silence. You stand at the front alone, holding your notes, feeling your pulse in your throat. Your old pattern begins rising. Your breath becomes shallow. Your mind whispers, "Don't mess this up." You open your mouth and say the first sentence quietly, testing the space. It echoes back at you thin, slightly rushed. Not weak, but not commanding either. You pause. You remember something from the charisma myth. People interpret your internal state through your vocal cues. If you sound rushed, they assume anxiety. If you sound steady, they assume confidence. If you sound warm, they assume kindness. Your voice is a translator of your inner world. So you shift your focus not to the audience, not to the slides, but to your breath. You inhale deeply, feeling your diaphragm expand. You let the exhale leave slowly. Then you speak again, slower, lower, grounded. The difference is immediate. The sound resonates in the room differently. It carries, it lands. It doesn't beg for attention. It assumes it. You realize something profound. Confidence is often nothing more than controlled pacing. When the audience enters, the room fills with low chatter and shifting chairs. Your heart begins racing again, but this time you don't fight it. You anchor yourself in rhythm. Slow breath, slow speech, intentional pauses. You begin. The first few sentences feel mechanical, but then something changes. You stop trying to sound impressive. You focus on sounding clear, present, human. When you make a key point, you allow silence afterward. Just 2 seconds. It feels like an eternity to you, but to them, it feels powerful. Silence, you realize, is part of your voice. Midway through, someone interrupts with a challenging question. Your body reacts instantly, heat rising in your chest. The old voice inside tries to hijack your tone, push it higher, faster, but you hold steady. You let them finish completely. You nod once, then you respond slowly, deliberately. Your tone remains even, not defensive, not sharp. The room feels it. The interruption doesn't escalate. It dissolves. Afterward, someone approaches you and says, "You sound really confident up there." Not "you are confident." You sound confident. The distinction matters, because confidence, in many moments, is first perceived through sound. Over the following weeks, you begin training your voice intentionally. You record yourself speaking and listen back, not to criticize but to observe. You notice patterns, where your pitch rises at the end of statements, making them sound like questions, where your pace accelerates when you're excited, where your tone flattens when you're tired. You practice reading aloud slowly. You practice lowering your pitch slightly at the end of sentences. You practice breathing from your diaphragm instead of your chest. At first, it feels artificial, forced, but then it becomes natural. You start noticing how your voice affects others in small conversations too. When you soften your tone slightly, people open up faster. When you deepen your pace during serious discussions, people listen more carefully. When you allow warmth into your inflection, tension melts. Your voice becomes an instrument, and you are finally learning to play it. One evening at a networking event, you test yourself in a different way. The room is crowded, buzzing with layered conversations and clinking glasses. Background music hums softly beneath it all. You approach a group already mid-discussion. In the past, you would have tried to squeeze your words in quickly, hoping not to be ignored. Now, you wait for a natural pause. You step in calmly. When you speak, your tone is clear and measured, not loud, but resonant. The group turns toward you. You don't rush your story. You let your sentences breathe. You let emotion color your voice naturally instead of suppressing it. When you laugh, you let it be genuine. When you make a serious point, your tone lowers slightly, inviting attention. Something shifts. You're no longer fighting to be heard. You are being received. But with growth comes new challenges. One day, during a heated debate at work, you feel your control slipping. Someone questions your idea aggressively. Your heart pounds. Your jaw tightens. Your voice begins to sharpen. For a split second, you hear yourself hard, clipped, reactive, the old defense mechanism, and you stop. You inhale deeply mid-sentence. You reset. You respond again this time, grounded, calm, deliberate. The power returns instantly. You realize then that a charismatic voice is not about perfection. It is about recovery, the ability to recalibrate under pressure. Weeks pass and your transformation becomes undeniable. People listen when you speak. They lean in. They remember your words, not because you are the loudest, but because your voice carries intention. Yet one night, standing alone in your apartment, you speak aloud into the silence and hear something deeper, beneath technique, beneath pacing, beneath tone, emotion. Your voice carries whatever you truly believe about yourself. If you doubt your worth, it trembles. If you own your value, it steadies. Technique can shape sound, but belief gives it weight. You stare at your reflection, speaking softly, testing your own name in the quiet room. The resonance feels stronger now, but you know this journey isn't finished, because a charismatic voice can command attention. It can inspire trust. It can move hearts. But the most powerful voice is the one that tells a story worth listening to. And if your voice is the instrument, then the next lesson will teach you how to use it not just to speak, but to lead. What if the prison you've been trying to escape has no walls? What if the eyes you fear the most are not even watching you? You feel it before you see it. The subtle tightening in your chest when you walk into a crowded room, the invisible spotlight that seems to follow you, the quiet assumption that someone, somewhere, is measuring you and finding you lacking. For years, fear of judgment has been the shadow behind every hesitation. It was there when you didn't raise your hand, there when you softened your opinion, there when you laughed at jokes you didn't find funny just to blend in. It never screamed. It whispered, "Don't stand out. Don't risk it. Don't let them see too much." And you listened, even now, after building presence, cultivating energy, strengthening your voice. The fear still lingers like a ghost at the edge of the room, because charisma is not tested in solitude. It is tested in exposure. The test comes unexpectedly. You're invited to speak at a larger event, far beyond the small meetings you've grown comfortable in. A stage, a microphone, dozens of unfamiliar faces. The kind of room that amplifies insecurity. The email confirmation sits in your inbox like a ticking clock. Your first reaction is pride. The second is panic. Your mind floods instantly with catastrophic imagination. You picture forgetting your words. You imagine someone yawning. You see yourself stumbling under bright lights while whispers ripple through the crowd. Judgment feels inevitable. That night, lying in bed, the ceiling above you dark and endless, you confront a truth you've been avoiding. Your fear is not of speaking. It is of being seen imperfectly. The idea that someone might think you're foolish, unqualified, ordinary, and beneath that, the deeper fear that they might be right. You remember something from the charisma myth? People are too busy thinking about themselves to scrutinize you as harshly as you imagine. The spotlight effect is mostly an illusion, but illusions feel real in the dark. The days leading up to the event are a battle. You rehearse your talk repeatedly, not just the words, but the pauses, the tone, the gestures. Yet no matter how prepared you are, the fear doesn't fully dissolve. It shifts shape. Instead of, what if I fail? It becomes, what if they judge me? On the morning of the event, the sky is clear, but your stomach feels stormy. You arrive early. The venue smells faintly of polished wood and anticipation. Rows of chairs stretch before the stage like silent witnesses waiting to evaluate you. Your heart pounds louder than the empty room. You walk onto the stage before anyone arrives. You stand at the center. You look out at the emptiness, and you ask yourself a dangerous question. What is the worst that could happen? Your mind answers quickly. You could stumble. You could forget a line. Someone could criticize you afterward. A few might be unimpressed. And then what? The world would continue. The realization doesn't erase fear, but it shrinks it. Judgment is uncomfortable, but it is not fatal. As people begin to enter, your anxiety spikes again. Conversations buzz. Laughter echoes. You feel the old urge to shrink. But then you notice something. Everyone looks slightly nervous. Even the confident ones. Even the ones laughing loudly. They adjust their clothes, check their phones, smooth their hair. They are thinking about themselves, not you. When your name is called, time slows. You step into the light. The brightness momentarily blinds you. You can't see individual faces, clearly just shapes, silhouettes, attention. Your pulse thunders in your ears. The fear of judgment stands beside you like a final opponent. Turn back, it whispers. Instead, you breathe, deep, steady. You begin speaking. The first sentence trembles slightly, but you don't stop. You keep going. You ground yourself in the rhythm you've trained. You look into the audience, not to search for approval, but to connect. Halfway through, something shifts. You stop performing. You start sharing. You talk about a personal struggle, a moment when fear paralyzed you. You admit vulnerability. You allow honesty into your tone. And instead of cold judgment, you see something unexpected in the crowd. Recognition. Heads nodding slowly. Faces softening. Someone wiping their eye subtly. The fear you carried, the one you thought would expose you, has become a bridge. After the talk, a stranger approaches you. "I've felt that too," they say quietly. "I didn't think anyone else admitted it." You realize then that judgment often dissolves in authenticity. When you stop pretending to be flawless, people stop expecting you to be. But the real transformation happens later that night, alone in your apartment. The adrenaline has faded. The applause is a memory. You sit in silence and replay the event not to criticize but to observe. Yes, you stumbled over one sentence. Yes, one person looked distracted. And it didn't destroy you. In fact, it barely mattered. The fear that once controlled you now looks smaller. Not gone, but manageable. You understand something profound. Fear of judgment is rooted in the belief that your worth depends on approval. But your worth was never up for vote. Charisma, you now see, is not about eliminating fear. It is about acting while fear watches. It is about stepping forward even when your voice shakes slightly. It is about accepting that some people may judge you and deciding to show up anyway. Over the following weeks, you test this new courage in small ways. You share opinions more freely. You dress in ways that reflect your personality instead of blending in. You laugh louder when something genuinely amuses you. Not everyone approves, and that's okay, because something more important has happened. You approve of yourself. The invisible prison door has opened, not because judgment disappeared, but because you stopped letting it define you. Yet as your confidence grows, another challenge begins to emerge. If you are no longer afraid of being judged, what happens when you start being admired? Admiration brings expectation. Expectation brings pressure, and pressure can break even the strongest voices. The next chapter will not test your courage in front of strangers. It will test your identity when the world begins to believe in you. What if the way people treat you is simply a reflection of what you believe about yourself? What if every room you walk into is a mirror, silently revealing the story you carry inside? You begin to notice it in small, almost unsettling ways. The world responds to you differently now. Conversations linger, opportunities appear, people seek your opinion. There is a subtle shift in how long eye contact lasts, how quickly others smile, how often your name is mentioned when decisions are made. At first, you assume it's coincidence, luck, timing, but deep down, you know something has changed. And it isn't them, it's you. The realization dawns one morning as you stand in front of your bathroom mirror. Soft light spills across your reflection. The face staring back at you looks the same features, same imperfections, but the eyes are different, steadier, less apologetic. For years, you avoided mirrors metaphorically. You avoided attention, avoided risk, avoided standing fully in your own space, and the world complied. It treated you as background noise because you treated yourself that way first. Now, something else is happening. When you enter a room believing you belong there, people subtly adjust as if it's true. When you speak as though your words have value, others assume they do. When you hold yourself with grounded certainty, the atmosphere reorganizes around you. This is the mirror effect. The world reflects your internal belief back to you. You test it consciously during a team meeting later that day. The room hums with anticipation. A new proposal is being discussed, and tension hangs lightly in the air.